lost way over there.
While it's certainly been nowhere near as prevalent as the roguelite subgenre that has flourished over the last few years with indie developers, the Souls-like genre is very much a growing niche in gaming. Sparked into being by From Software nearly a decade ago, there's been a few pretenders to the Dark Souls throne, and what's curious to see is that the next challenger is actually coming from inside the building. Bandai Namco Entertainment have published the Dark Souls games for the last 6-7 years, I forget exactly how long, and it's now presumed that this trilogy of games has come to an end. So they're looking instead to rekindle that success with their own internal effort, Code Vein. This is actually coming from the team behind God Eater, so it's not exactly a step into the unknown, and that team have already shown themselves to be able to put together a good action RPG with boss battles at its core. There's a similar conceit to the story of Code Vein as well, but it certainly hews more towards the Souls-like gameplay and the open world design. Set in a post-apocalyptic world, humans have evolved down a bizarre and unusual path, straying away from the meat and two veg that many people will currently enjoy for an evening meal, down a more vampiric path, shall we say, to consuming blood for sustenance. Presumably, vegetarians and vegans will have been first up onto the dinner table. You play as one of these revenants, and with a fully customizable character. The supply of blood is gradually slowing, and more are giving into their vampiric lusts and becoming one of the lost. However, you're taking a different path, and alongside one of a number of companions, you venture back into the past instead, to see where the revenants came from and how they might be able to find a solution to their bloodlust. Anyone familiar with the Souls games will feel right at home with the stamina-based combat system. There's heavy and light attacks with a range of different weapons that range from fast and nimble to heavy and slow, though only a few are available to try. In the thick of the action, you'll be carefully watching enemy animations and trying to avoid getting hit through a combination of blocks, parries, dodges, and just sensible positioning. Dodging and parrying, or simply taking damage, will fill up your focus meter gradually, eventually boosting your speed and attack damage passively. Then there's a drain attack, which falls back to a completely different weapon and can be charged up, possibly used in combination with parries and back attacks to deal more damage. However, you also have a wide range of additional abilities known as gifts, and these will range from powering up your attacks with lightning on your sword, to increasing your defense, sending a small or large firebolt at enemies, reviving your AI companion, and so on. You actually have quick access to 8 of them at a time just by pressing a shoulder button in combination with the 4 face buttons or your 4 D-pad directions. You'll be spending your reserves of Ica to do so, which is earned from dealing damage, getting kills, or consuming a particular item that restores this resource. Spend it wisely, in other words, and save it up for those moments where you really need that boost. What really helps this game stand out is its anime stylings and the world that it's set in, but it comes with a slightly odd hodgepodge of ideas within that. There's the cavernous underground section that the demo started in, full of deep and dark purple hues, but breaking out of this location and above the surface, I was confronted with a far more ordinary looking destroyed city. You've also got a range of fantastical abilities and weapons, including a very Edward Scissorhands-like glove of blades as one of the possible drain weapons. And then there's Mia's insistence on wearing a bearskin hat and running around with what appears to be a 19th century musket. Somehow, it actually works quite well, I feel. Mia is one of your potential companions through all of this, and the only one that has been revealed so far, and so alongside your standard array of light and heavy attacks and so on, she's got your back in the middle of a fight. She's great for dealing just a smidgen of extra damage, drawing the attention of enemies away from you in a fight, or possibly reviving you if you've been downed, and she's not under attack herself at that same time. That you can have a companion might be somewhat controversial among the die-hard fans of this subgenre, as it does lighten the load and make the game just that little bit easier. But then on the other hand, you've always been able to go into boss battles in Dark Souls with a co-op companion alongside you. Mia is a real lifeline during boss battles, as she shares some of her health with you when you're downed and doesn't seem to have the same kind of inventory constraints as you do when it comes to self-healing. Of course, she can be killed herself if you let enemies focus on her for too long, and you'll need to take some of the burden yourself instead of always just hanging back. Facing off against the Queen's Knight, he's actually a relatively unpredictable character. He could switch very quickly from attacking me into attacking you, and with a range of teleport and long range thrusting attacks, you need to be very much on your toes to get the better of him. Additionally, the more you deal damage, obviously his attack patterns are going to evolve, there's new ones added to his array, and he makes for a pretty challenging enemy. I'm always really quite bad when it comes to playing this style of game at game events to actually beating the bosses, but I got pretty close in my first attempt before then starting to experiment, which is my excuse for not managing to beat him. Balancing this game will obviously be very key for the Bandai Namco to get right, and with this particular build, it's actually a bit too far in the wrong direction. One of the things that held me up from being able to beat the boss was that every charge up attack animation, every ability, every spell, and every item consumption, it just takes too long and slows you down too much, with any enemy or boss being able to hit you during this time and interrupt what you're trying to do. It amps up the difficulty in a manner that feels just a bit too unforgiving at this point, but thankfully it's something that the developers are aware of and have likely already tweaked and fixed in the wider game, compared to this very small first playable build that has been used to show off the game for the last few months. Code Vein has got a few interesting ideas up its sleeves, from the AI companions to the breadth of gifts that you have available to you, but it does ultimately seem to boil down to being an anime Dark Souls in quite a lot of ways. That is of course not a bad thing when there's an awful lot of fans of this genre looking for more games of this ilk now that Dark Souls has come to its conclusion. The game is out in 2018 for PS4, Xbox One and PC, so this is definitely one for fans of the genre to keep an eye on. Thanks as ever for checking out our video, and I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen, if not my gaming ability. Please do like, subscribe and share this with others, and you can also come visit us over on the 6thAxis.com. Hopefully we will see you again soon. Goodbye!